Good evening. Welcome to the MSC Studio, YouTube Studio in Germany. My name is Wode, your one and only annoying village boy from Ghana. And today I've been joined by Wolfgang Schmidt. And I think we're going to have an incredible conversation because I've heard a lot about you. And I hope you're ready for me.
I'm absolutely ready for you.
I'm from Ghana. The first time I heard that I'm going to speak to Wolfgang, and I'm like, what kind of gang is that? Are you part of any gang or is just
Fortunately not, and it's kind of an old-fashioned German name, and my surname is Schmidt, which is even worse. So the combination of Wolfgang Schmidt, if you Google me, you find like thousands of me. That's a good thing.
I did a research today and someone passed on today and the person has the same name as you. I was so scared. I'm like, am I going to speak to a ghost?
No, fortunately, it's not me, so I could make it.
Thank you so much for coming. I have so many questions to ask you, but first of all, I want to know your personal, friendship between you and the Chancellor. How did both of you meet?
Sorry?
How did both of you meet?
Well, we are both from Hamburg, so the port city in the north of Germany. And I was active in politics and youth politics, and he's a bit senior than me, so he was also active in local politics. And so somehow in a city, even of nearly 2 million inhabitants, you meet if you're in the same circles of politics. And so we got to know each other. And then when he became the Secretary General of the Social Democratic Party on the national level, and I had just finished my second state exam in law and wanted to finish my dissertation and then become a judge. And then he asked me whether I'm willing and would might work for him. And I said yes. And so we started 20 years ago to work together.
Wow. I think a lot of people got to know the relationship just a year ago. They don't know that you guys have been together for 20 years, which I think it's incredible. You're a minister for special affairs. I'm from Ghana. First time hearing special affairs. So I want you to educate me a little bit. What is your role in Germany's government? What is the role as a special?
Well, first of all, I have no portfolio. So I have no own portfolio like the Minister for the Interior or for Foreign Affairs or for Health. Sometimes I would say I'm like the janitor of the government. So I take care of the whole government. And we have a coalition government, so 3 different parties working together, and they have very different political background. And that means that there is a lot of coordination needed. And that's what with the team in the Chancellery, what we are doing. And so that is why it is like the special task. So basically, it's anything that nobody else wants to do.
Wow. Fun fact, you're a big fan of football.
Yes.
What team do you support?
I support the FC St. Pauli, which is a team from Hamburg, unfortunately second league football.
Oh, wow. I'm coming from Ghana. All we know is Wolfsburg, Bayern Munich. I was expecting to hear that.
Yeah, no.
So you don't support any of those teams?
No. I like football, and so I stick to the team that I've been fan of for, 30 years now.
So I guess you don't watch Champions League then?
Sometimes if I want to see real football, because in the second league, it's not always high-class football.
Okay. I really want to know Germany's cooperation with African countries. Is Germany really investing in Africa? Because when you go to Africa, France is doing a lot in Africa. China is doing a lot. What about Germany? I know Germany is investing in Africa, but I want to know, what are the active projects that you guys are doing on the motherland?
Well, first of all, under the chancellorship of Angela Merkel, when she chaired the G20, she introduced what was called then the Compact with Africa. And that is a group of so-called compact countries that are advanced in reforms. And that is a G20 initiative. And so obviously, Germany has a special role in promoting also business activities with Africa. Merkel always invited the African leaders from that Compact with Africa to Berlin, and Chancellor Scholz is taking on that tradition. And in the framework of that Compact with Africa, 2 or 3 years back, we decided to have two funds, actually, Africa Connect and Africa Growth, where we would have investments into small and medium-sized African companies. That's one fund. And the other one is to help German companies to do business in Africa, because that's a reality. Sometimes companies can be a bit complacent and do not see the opportunities that exist in the African continent. And so that is what we have, a business association called Afrika Verein. So that is the Africa Association of German Business. And there's a lot of energy partnership going on. And when I was working with the now chancellor, when he was the mayor of the city or state of Hamburg, as the kind of foreign minister of Hamburg, I had lots of contacts with African countries, because they were coming to Hamburg because that Africa Association had its headquarters in Hamburg. And so they were organizing, for example, an Africa Energy Summit every year in Hamburg. And many ministers from Africa came to Hamburg.
Does it mean that Germany funds some of the businesses in Africa? Like,
yes, it's like sometimes seed money, sometimes if there is a next stage of a company that needs financing. And then there is businesses where you say these are non-bankable projects, so that they are actually good, but there is, from the perspective of banks, too much financial risk involved. And so there is where the so-called IFIs, the international financial institutions, are coming in, and there is developing banks or guarantee banks that would help then. And if such an actor is investing in a company or in a fund, then other market actors actually say, okay, look, the state is taking, a government is taking a risk. That seems to be a reliable project. So we invest private money as well. So that's a bit the model how many European countries are helping to develop businesses with Africa.
I think I have a problem when it comes to foreign investment in Africa.
Yes.
Because in Africa, so many businesses, or maybe the African continent in general, is not learning anything. It's just like companies funding, and at the end of the day, we don't know where the money goes to. So I really want to ask you, because this is a big opportunity for me to ask you this question: what can Africa learn from European Union, especially Germany?
I think it's always complicated to say, no, you should learn this or you can learn that. I think every continent, but actually every country, has to do its own way and experience. The European Union is a very unique body, a supranational institution. It's not a state, but there's many functions of a state now transferred to the European capital, Brussels. So I think that in the African Union, some of the elements are developed. But for example, the founding element of the European Union was actually a tariff union, so that trade was possible. And I see that in regions in Africa, this is happening. But obviously, and you know the African reality way better. It's a way bigger continent, and with very different countries. So I'm a bit now being from Europe, I'm a bit reluctant in saying Africa, because the Africa I know is so different. So to just say, okay, this one thing fits for all of Africa, I wouldn't dare to say that.
So does Germany actively working with a particular African country?
Yes, we have these compact countries, but then also there is now the just energy transition partnerships. That is something that is happening with the 7 biggest industrialized nations, so this G7. And so, example, we are doing this with a country like South Africa. And the idea is to support African countries, but also Asian or Latin Americans, in their way to become net zero. Because if we want to save the planet and follow this 1.5 degree goal, we need really to decrease our CO2 footprint. And I think it's not on Germany or Europe to tell Africa, Latin America, or Asia, oh, please reduce yours and please do not use so much electricity. Meanwhile, we are doing the contrary. And so what we can do and what you might learn, or African countries might learn, is that probably don't make the mistakes we did. And for example, invest immediately in renewable energy, solar or wind, instead of burning coal and other stuff that is polluting the atmosphere. So that is, I think, and we can help because at the moment it's more expensive, you need more investment.
Exactly.
And so that is why we say this is then a possibility for such a just energy transition partnership.
I think you've already answered my global warming question. So this will definitely be my last question. I love the fact that Germany has officially acknowledged the genocide that happened in Namibia. And I just want to take your opinion on this. I mean, Germany offers to pay 1.2 billion for reparation in Namibia. What do you think about that? And it's going to take like 30 years. Why not now?
Because I think awareness grew over the last years. When I was in Hamburg, we started a project because Hamburg has a sister cityship with Dar es Salaam in Tanzania. And people realized, because there are some sculptures of the so-called Askaris that were supporting African troops at the turn of the century. And there's a bad history of German colonialism, short, but not something we should be proud of. And you see the traces of colonialism, especially in a trading hub like Hamburg, everywhere, be it names of streets, be it exhibition items in our museums. And so there was a growing awareness that it's not okay and that we should enter into our dialogue. And the beauty of that sister cityship is that we could work with the, for example, University of Dar es Salaam, and had an historian doing his PhD on the perception of the colonial past of Africa, or in this case of Tanzania, in Hamburg, and a Hamburg student doing it about the perception in Tanzania. And then with an incredible professor at the University of Hamburg, we created a research center for colonial past. And so that kicked this debate. And now people obviously started to say, okay, we need to do something to kind of repay what we did and the damage we did.
It's going to take 30 years.
Yeah, that's sometimes how it is. And even for a rich country like Germany, it's not so easy to mobilize €1 billion.
But I really want to know, how does Germany intend to pay this money within? Does it mean that every year you're going to give them this amount of money?
No, I mean, and it's not only that kind of activity. No, you know, we are, I think, number 2 when it comes to official development assistance, and Africa is the main country that receives that assistance out of the German budget. And so that is in addition to all these official development assistance, what we are doing. But there's a lot of stuff that is also on a cultural level, acknowledging what has been stolen. So giving items back to museums, I think that is part of that kind of recognition of the wrong that Germany did in the past.
So more like a property theft and stuff like that. But let me ask, in terms of the reparation of goods, like more of an artifact that was taken from the country.
Yeah.
Has it been returned, or
yes, there were like Benin. I don't know the English word.
Benin. I was in Benin recently, and I saw that.
You saw that.
Yeah, but I was talking about when it comes to Germany, it's more of Germany, Namibia. So that's why I was just like more.
Yes, it's in Namibia, but also Tanzania. So you have it in all places. I mean, we didn't have a big colonial footprint because it was only a short period, other than other countries. But still, and we want to kind of make good for what our ancestors had done.
You know, this will be my final question. Are you famous?
No. And that's the beauty of it. I have the best job because I am a very interesting job, but I normally stay out of and don't do interviews because my job is to coordinate and keep together a coalition of three. And it's not such a good idea to be then on the television, because then people would ask me, what do I think about this or this and that minister colleague of mine? And so it's better to not do it. But I made an exception here at the MSC and with YouTube and you, and said, when the MSC asked me, I should do that because I like that people like you, that also from what we call the global south sometimes,
Exactly.
are participating, because it is so important. It's not only Western countries talking to each other from the Northern Hemisphere, but that
Exactly.
we have a more global discussion. And that's why I said, okay, I'll come to you. And I also heard you are famous in Ghana and that you have a lot of followers. And so I said, that's a good argument.
Thank you so much for coming. But I just want to tell you that even though you're not famous, but you're very influential in Germany. And I want to say, keep it up. No more interviews after this one.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you
Thanks
so
a
much
lot.
for talking to me. Appreciate you.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
Wow.